G'day guys, you're back with MiracleMAX. Today in the workshop we have a Mazda 626 that's a no start situation. Just keep in mind all these diagnostic tests that I'm doing will apply to pretty much all petrol engines. Okay, what do we need to make an engine work? Well, firstly we need spark, we need fuel, we need air, and of course good compression. Now I'm not concerned about the compression on this engine, and I'm not overly concerned about the air into this engine either. The things I'm going to focus on firstly are spark and fuel. First things first, when you're interrogating or questioning a customer, you need to establish what they mean by a no start situation. Does it crank over? Does it click? Does it do nothing at all? Is there any headlights when you turn them on? Is there any red lights on the dash? In this particular case, let's have a look. So as you can see, it cranks over no problems, but it's not starting. What do we do next? Well, I have had a look at all my fuses. There's a fuse box over there, and of course there's one inside. I've checked all my fuses to make sure that there's nothing silly that's gone wrong, and I'm happy with those. What should I check next? Well, let's have a look for spark. How do I do that? Of course, one thing I forgot to remind you is that the battery is a priority. It should be checked. Now, I know the battery's okay on this engine, I've tested it, but of course with the amount of cranking I've been doing, it's just slowly getting lower in voltage. It's starting to drain the battery. So I've just got myself a little jumper battery attached to it, just to give a bit of an aid. But the battery's not the problem. Let's check that spark as I mentioned. So to check for spark, it's really not that hard. I've pulled off number 4 plug lead, as you can see here. This is a waste spark ignition system. I've got it onto a rando spark plug, so the original's still in there. I've got a good earth connection on there, that just goes over there. And what we're going to look for is see if we have spark at our rando spark plug. Okay, how's that looking? No problem with spark. Okie dokie. Well, this is just an overview, of course, but that gives you the general idea. What did I mention next? Well, that was fuel. I could always go back to the fuel pump, you know, pull up this, pull up that, and try and assess it from there. Generally speaking, you can do it through a relay, but this one doesn't have a separate relay for the fuel pump, so I can't actually do that. Can I determine if it's fuel or not? Let's have a look. The easiest way to see if it's a fuel fault or not is just to lift up your air box and give her a bit of the homebrew or something similar, engine start of some description. Now generally you're going to have to open your throttle body over there. In this particular case it's a cable one, so I can do that. I'll try at least. If not, you may have to get someone inside to hold the throttle plate open or your foot on the accelerator to allow the homebrew to go through the system. We'll give that a bit of a shot, shall we? Okay, let's see if that works or not. It should at least start it. So there was enough aerostart to let it run for a little while, and then you notice that it cut out. So of course it's a fuel issue. Where should I head? Well, back to the fuel pump now, considering I can't check it over here with a relay as I normally would. Fortunately on this model it's not that hard. Lift up the back seat and it's pretty much right in front of you. Let's go and check it out. Access to the fuel pump is quite easy. It's under this section here. This is the center section of the back seat, and to get the back seat up there's just a pulley thing over here and you just pull it up. Once you get the seatbelt out the road like that. Okay, and we have a nice little access panel. 4 screws come out and we can access the fuel pump itself. I've removed those 4 screws for the access panel. It's simply a matter of pulling it up like that and you can see the fuel pump underneath. It's a good idea to get this bung and pull it through the hole so that you can get that panel right out the road and you can work on your fuel pump easily. A lot of dust in there, isn't there? What should we check? Well, we should check for power and ground, and of course we can back probe those ones here. There'll be 2 thick wires. They'll be the motor, the fuel pump itself. There'll be a ground, probably a black one, and there'll be another colour on the other side. We'll check the voltage on that and make sure that it's all okay. I've just snuck past the weather seals on my connector here. The positive is on the bottom, the ground is on the top. Now it doesn't really matter, the digital multimeter is going to read backwards if that's the case anyway. Let's turn the ignition on, see what happens. Just flick it. And we've clearly got 12 volts there. At this moment in time I can hear the fuel pump priming, but that's no guarantee that it's actually working. As I mentioned, there is a black wire as well as a black-blue wire here, and I've just split this shrouding back a little bit, and as you can see, nicked myself a little bit. And what we're going to do is get a low amp clamp from my Pico scope and just pop it round one of these wires. Should have put it round this wire or this wire? Well, it's not going to make a scrap of difference. Of course, the waveform may read differently. We can adjust that accordingly. Let's have a look at our waveform. Now, be honest with you, this car stops and starts. Sometimes it'll start, sometimes it won't. So it looks like we've got an intermittent fault here. Every time it's cold, it doesn't want to start. This morning I got out and I banged the tank like this from above and it started, no problems. Could be a brush problem onto the commutator. Let's have a look at the waveform. As you can see in front of you, this is the waveform that we should be looking at, a nice uniform wave. Now it's a DC signal of course, but we can see that it's going up and down as it goes across the commutator. So what we need to do now is to see what our waveform looks like by comparison. Of course this vehicle may start now, it may not start, I don't know, but let's have a look at the waveform anyway. Well, that kind of looks weird, huh? Let's change our time base on that. Do an AC couple, time base. Let's make it 2 seconds per division. Okay, let's have a quick look at that and see what it looks like. Let's zoom in on that. Man, oh man, that looks pretty atrocious, doesn't it? There's nothing good about that signal. My goodness me. That's not what we're meant to be looking for, is it? We're meant to be looking for a nice analog signal or sine wave going up and down, but goodness me, that is atrocious. Let's filter it and we'll go to DC and see exactly what we are getting current wise. Okay, I've now got it DC filtered, so hopefully that should give us a better signal than we had before, and we'll try that. Let's go in the go-go mode. We are running and we'll try that. Okay, why do I have no signal now? That's just weird. Oh, maybe no current, perhaps it stopped. Let's have a look at my voltage and see if the voltage is still there. I'll just hook up my voltage again. I pulled it out, and we'll just make sure the voltage is still there because the current seems to have disappeared. So has the voltage disappeared, or is it just the fuel pump is now open circuited, I guess you could say. So no signal, but we have voltage there. So it appears that the fuel pump is now open circuited, which is what I expected. Look guys, I can go ahead confidently and say that this fuel pump needs replacement. So let's get that fuel pump out. Clearly the first thing I need to do is get some compressed air in here and blow that sucker out. There's dust and stuff floating around in there. We don't want that in the fuel, do we? So we'll just pop a rag over the top and make sure that we don't get dust everywhere. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm sure we will though, hey? That looks pretty good in my books. Of course, we're going to get our connector off there. Make sure that we can get him off. We'll get those fuel hoses out shortly. Just keep in mind there may be pressure in the fuel system, but considering the fuel pump's not working, I'd be surprised. So make sure these hoses go on the right way. Now whether this is a different size, I'm not quite sure, but just to make life easier, I'm just going to put a little mark on there. Then there won't be any questions asked, will there? There'll be a pressure line and there'll be a return line, so you don't want to confuse the two. Some of these can be a little bit sticky since they've been in there. This vehicle's done almost 300,000 k, so it's not surprising that the pump is, just a touch tired. Okay, there we go. Come on, fella. Maybe a little bit of pressure coming out there. or just a dribble. There we go. This side's off next, and that should come off as well. Like that. Right, let's get those screws out and get the whole assembly out of the tank. Little tiny screws, they'll be threaded into a ring that goes into the tank. This is a metal tank, not a plastic one. You may want to get a tray as well so you don't put this all over the customer's car. Any fuel that dribbles out as it comes out. Keep in mind the orientation of it, but it's fairly clear where the hoses are sitting right now. It shouldn't be too hard to fit again. Let's carefully lift that pump up and see if we can aim most of it into the tray itself there. Now there'll be a sender unit attached to it, so you might have to do a little bit of wiggle jiggle situation, but hopefully it's not too bad. There we go. Just like that, hey? Let's go to the bench and have a look. You might want to cover that opening there so you don't get any dirt while you're away. There we go, just like that. One of the major priorities is making sure that the part that you're replacing it with is the same as the old one. Now, what I can see here is that they've given us an adaptation kit for the wiring. Now, I'm hoping that I might be able to use the old one or something. Anyway, we'll have to figure that out. The important thing is that the pump's the same, and it certainly does look like it's the same apart from this connector here. There's also, they've provided a sock, which is good. It's a little strainer filter that goes on the bottom there, like that, and we can just pop that together. It shouldn't be a really big job, he said. Down the bottom here you can see a Phillips head screw. If we undo that, we can pull that off and the whole pump should drop down. Undo that and get that bracket out. Should make it like mega easy to undo. Once I undo this bloke here, or this bloke here, and we'll replace that. I think they give us a new one in the kit as well, so it'd be good to renew that piece of hose too. So we'll take that one off the top, wiggle him down hopefully. Oh, look at that, mate. Awesome. Okay, you can see we've got a positive and a negative here. We may have to adapt that wiring to the new one. We'll figure that out shortly, hey? Oh, this is our sender unit, this bloke here. So they're two separate individual ones. You can see the thick wires, that's for the pump itself. That should wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Oh, come on, fella. Time to send in the big guns. So we'll get in behind there with my nail. Let's push that tab down. That should, in theory, what happened to the wiggle, wiggle, wiggle business? There we go, just like that. This one should be the same. Like that. Okay, that's good. We've now got our pump out. Now we've got to figure out what we're going to do with this, because this is a little bit different to our other one. Let's push him up further and further. Okay, it's actually threaded on, fair enough. That's just a cover. So we've got this connector which we definitely need, and we'll have to have a look at our other connector on the new one. So they've given us crimping connectors. I'm wondering if that would be affected by fuel or not. They give us a lovely set of instructions. I'll have to have a look through that and see what they need to do. It says down here, cut the wires of the original terminals or terminal block, strip approximately yada yada blah blah blah. And that's what they are actually using. So I guess they have tested it to make sure it's okay with fuel. Unusual, but I'll follow their guidelines. Just making sure that this is the same size, looks like an 8mm, which is okay. So we will make sure we have the same length of rubber hose that was on the old one, and we'll install that too. I think that's a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, so I might have to snip it down a touch. Slide that onto the new one, like that. Get those hose clamps on there too, so we don't forget them. Just slide them on with a pair of pliers, get him down there so that I can push it up later on. All done. So this is our connector here, that goes in like that. Now we have to put joiners onto the old one to make sure that it connects into this terminal here that goes into our block right there. Of course you want to make sure the length is the same. This is a little bit long, and you want to make the orientation correct, so red to red, black to black. So we'll just cut that in the middle and we'll put joiners in there. Job will be done. Okay, I've done as per instructions. It looks pretty neat and tidy. I was a little concerned that this plastic's in fuel, etc. Then I thought, hang on, the plastic on the wire, the plastic of the fuel pump, and yeah, so these have obviously been tested to make sure that they're okay in fuel. I'm happy with those crimps, nice and strong, no problemo, so we can now reassemble it. I didn't really need to pull that little connector off because that was just for our sender unit. We can slide this guy on, like that. And then all we have to do is put our sock on there and our bracket and make sure that it's facing the correct direction. Okay, so this bracket will dictate the position of this pump. Yes, this one here has a different connector on it like that. Oh, it's got a rubber. Oh, well, that's interesting. This here will be this is our intake, of course. This here will be a pressure relief valve. Be a little ball in behind it, a check valve. So that's what that tiny hole is for. There'll be one on this one as well. Can you see that one there? So we need to make sure that that is clear. That would have to go like that if we were going to put it on there. I think it might fit. Alright, so in other words, that has to go, we've got to turn our pump around yet. As you can see, the sock has to go on before the rubber. You can see that it's got a little retaining circlip there, so I'll have to pop that off to put the new one on. Oh no, believe it or not, they gave us one in the kit. Didn't see that. Okay, pop that little lid off. Whoops, the little bung. Ah, that was a tricksy one. There's a cover in there too. Need to pull that out. Just to make sure. And that should go onto that like that. Very nice, very nice. Push him on nice and snug. Yep, that is about right, I believe. Looks like it's gone down all the way. If you have a look at this circlip, you can see that it's got the little tangs sticking up one way. You want to make sure that the tangs are facing up so that when you push this down, it just clamps it into place. You may need maybe a socket or something like that to push it down on occasion, but hopefully we'll be okay in this case. I think that goes down very schneisely. Doesn't have to go down too much, just to stop this fella falling off. Okay, that rubber fella goes on next. That one there. That fella goes on there. And then that locks into place just there. That little screw goes back in next. So we've got the connector pushed in tight. We've got these connectors pushed in tight. We've done our terminals and our wires. We've changed our wires and made sure that they're secure. We haven't damaged our float at all. That's okay. We've got our sock on. We've got our rubber insulating mount here, and our fuel pump is in place. Just make sure this rubber surface here is nice and clean. There's no dust on it and there's no damage, of course. Let's plonk this fella back in the car. I'm not going to show you step by step of putting it back into the tank. We know how we pulled it out, and to be quite honest, I forgot to press the record button. Doesn't matter. There's two little lugs here to be noted. You lift them up, you can see a little hole drilled in there. That needs to line up, and that will give you the correct location of the top, and it'll fit in absolutely snugly. So we can put these screws back in, those little ones, and that's part of our job done. There we go, job's done. I've got those little screws put into place, my two hoses correctly routed through there, so I know that this is my high pressure, that's my return. I had my marks on there, of course. This is back into place. I'd like to have a look with my Pico at the waveform and just see if it has improved. Well, I certainly hope it has. I'm also going to hook up my multimeter as well and see if the voltage drop has changed. That'd be interesting. All right, we'll start it up and we'll have a look at that waveform as well as the voltage, see what it does. Have a look at that, hey? I've had to change my time base simply because the pattern is a lot better and consistent. Isn't that a beautiful pattern, hey? We're looking at, what's that, about 4 amps, something along those lines, whereas before it was all over the shop. What a horrible, horrible waveform it was. If we just stop this now, look at that, isn't that beautiful? We can see the brushes going over the commutator, up and down, up and down, up and down. There's no bumps, there's no whatever miss out or drop out that we had there before. Be nice to see them side by side. I think all we have to do now is button it up, give it a really good road test and make sure that everybody's happy, and make sure it starts in the morning, of course, but that's a brilliant waveform. Very, very nice. Very happy with that. Okay, in true MiracleMAX style, I've disassembled the fuel pump, as you can see. At the bottom end of it, we have the sock, which draws in fuel, obviously, And you can see in here that there's a little chamber that it gets drawn into, quite large, and it gets smaller and smaller as it comes in here. This is the going from the low pressure side into the high pressure side, and that's done by the means of a little turbine. As you can see, that's on a shaft. You can see that there. It's got a little slot on it so that it actually rotates with the shaft. But ours was electrically a problem, wasn't it? That's over the other side. So I've taken off the top piece. As you can see, that's our outlet, and we have a check valve in here. This will be a pressure relief valve just there, as you can see, and that if any excess pressure is built up that it can't cope with, it squirts it out there back into the tank. So what's it like in here? Was I incorrect with my diagnosis? Is the fuel pump okay? Yeah, I don't think so. Have a look at that puppy right there. That's our brushes. There's the brushes right there. They're spring loaded, and as you can see, there's still some carbon left on it. But have a look at the actual, if I can get it out. There we go there. Oh man, that's nice, eh? This here is meant to be flat, and as you can see, there's a big gully that's been cut into it because of the brushes going around and around and around, and that's purely because the thing is old. But like I said, it's meant to be flat. But remember, there was a really dodgy signal, and you can see over here there's a black spot. Get in a little bit closer for you. You can see that black spot there, and that there is poor contact with the carbon brushes. So it would go around here, and every time that it stopped on that particular spot, the fuel pump wouldn't work. She'd be, good night, nurse. So all you have to do is kick the tank at that point, hit the tank, whatever you want to do. It'll jolt it to another section, and the thing will start up again until next time you stop on this dodgy spot. So that is exactly what I pictured happening. Let's count the segments in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's confirm it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 segments. You should be able to check that on the pattern and see a repeating pattern of 8 segments. So yes, at almost 300,000 Ks, this little pump was worn out, no doubt about it. So it was a good call, but it was just nice to see the waveforms proving that this little commutator, or the brushes onto the commutator as it spins around and around, were actually worn out. So guys, that was a quick and easy diagnosis, finding out whether we have spark or fuel, and in this case we had no fuel, did we? Go to the fuel pump, and there's our answer right there. We had voltage, but man, that current was really, really weird. Another way you could do it is to pull that hose off the fuel pump, see if any fuel comes out, and listen to it. Of course, it should have a buzzing noise happening. Of course, SJ has to join it at the end of the video for all the glory. Now, the diagnosis that we did could be used for any vehicle, any petrol-driven vehicle anyway, with a similar sort of setup. There are other testing procedures that you can do if it has a separate relay or fuse just for the fuel pump, but in this case, that wasn't the case. So guys, I hope you got something from this video today. I know that I did, and maybe SJ did as well. If you haven't already, and maybe you'd like to, you could always subscribe to the channel, give it a like, another one, give us another thumb. So you could like it, and you can comment down below. Of course, don't forget about that notification bell. You don't want to miss any future videos. Don't forget about Facebook and Insta as well. You can hop on there and have a look at what we're up to. So guys, until next time, this is MiracleMAX and
SJ.
signing off. We will catch you later.